Welcome to Community Solar News. I'm Ray, and with me, as always, is Della. And Della, I want to open with a number because I have been staring at it all morning. In 1 week, 2 developers on this show pulled in almost $300 million in fresh capital.
Almost $300 million in a week, when half the trade press has spent the last year writing the obituary for this market.
That's the hot take right there. Everybody keeps telling us community solar is squeezed, headwinds, tax credit clef, the whole story. And meanwhile, the money is voting with its feet. So let's keep score today. Capital moving, programs opening, and one deadline everybody in your pipeline needs circled on the calendar.
I love a scorekeeping episode. Where do you want to start?
Start with the one that actually made me sit up. PureSky Energy closed a $183.7 million refinancing on its operating portfolio. And here's the word that matters: investment grade.
Okay, unpack that for anyone who's thinking, great, another financing headline. Investment grade is not a decoration. It's a rating agency looking at a pile of community solar assets and saying this cash flow is boring in the best possible way. That is a milestone for the whole asset class, not just for one company.
Right, and look at what's under it. 211 megawatts of solar, 58 megawatt hours of storage, 43 operating assets across Massachusetts, New York, and Minnesota. They took 8 separate debt portfolios and folded them into one structure.
And don't skip past that storage number, because I think it's a tell. 58 megawatt hours paired with community solar. A couple years ago, these were bare arrays. Now you're seeing storage baked into the portfolio, which is what makes the cash flow smoother and, not coincidentally, easier to rate. Storage is becoming table stakes in these deals.
Table stakes and a hedge. When you can shift when that power hits the grid, you're less exposed to the hours when it's worth nothing. A lender sees that as risk coming down. So the storage isn't a green sprinkle on top, it's part of why the paper got the grade.
Which is the part I'd flag for the operators listening. 8 portfolios into one. That's the unglamorous work of a company that's done enough deals to have a messy balance sheet and is now cleaning it up so it can go do more. The note purchasers tell you who's paying attention too. PGIM, funds managed by AB Carval, Denham Capital. That's institutional money.
Their CFO, Rami Kadra, called it a significant milestone for a portfolio of that scale. And normally I roll my eyes at a CFO quote, but on this one he's earned it. You don't get an investment grade rating on community solar by accident.
And here's the downstream effect, because that's my job on this show. When one developer proves the paper can be rated, it lowers the cost of capital for the next one who walks into that room. This is how an asset class grows up. Somebody goes first.
So hold that thought, because somebody went right after them. Nexamp closed a $106 million facility, 5 years, led by First Citizens Bank.
Same week, different flavor. This one's a portfolio of 20 operating projects across New York, Illinois, Maine, and Massachusetts. First Citizens as lead arranger, and they brought in Huntington Bank and Siemens Financial Services alongside them.
And that lending group is the story for me. When you see regional and specialty lenders syndicating into community solar, that's not a science experiment anymore. That's a bank product.
Their CEO, Zaid Ashai, made a point I thought was sharp. He tied it to volatility. His framing was basically, global energy markets are uncertain, and local clean energy is a thing you can actually count on. And whether or not you buy the pitch, the logic holds up for a lender. 20 operating projects throwing off bill credits to households and small businesses is about as predictable as revenue gets.
Predictable revenue. That's the whole game. You build the thing, the neighbors subscribe, the checks come in every month. Boring. Bankable. Which honestly is exactly the segue I want. But I'm going to hold the sponsor for the end because we've got 2 program stories that matter more.
We do. And this is where I get to be the rules person. Because capital is necessary, but capital doesn't build anything if the program's gummed up.
So take us to New Mexico, because this one's been a saga.
It has. The New Mexico Public Regulation Commission just voted to overhaul the rules for the state's community solar program. The headline target is 500 megawatts of subscriptions by 2030, but the real news is buried in the mechanics. They directed the utilities to develop consolidated billing.
Explain why that's the real news, because on paper, consolidated billing sounds like a snooze.
It sounds like a snooze until you're the one trying to sign up a subscriber. Right now, in a lot of programs, a customer gets one bill from the utility and a separate bill from the subscriber organization. 2 bills for one thing. Jim Desjardins from the Renewable Energy Industries Association put it perfectly. He said, "Why do I have 2 bills? Consolidated billing means it all shows up in one place."
And that's not just convenience. That's your acquisition funnel. Every extra step between interest and enrollment is where you lose people. A second bill, a second login, a separate payment method, each one leaks subscribers. Kill the second bill and your conversion rate goes up without spending another dollar on marketing.
And your churn goes down on the back end, which the finance folks care about even more. A subscriber who never has to think about that second bill is a subscriber who's still on the project in year 4. That's the retention that made the Nexamp and PureSky paper bankable in the first place. It all connects. That's exactly it. Nick Bauman from the Coalition for Community Solar Access called the earlier version Growing Pains. And the fix matters most for low-income subscribers, the folks the program is supposed to reach, who are often unbanked or underbanked. If you don't have to hand a separate payment method to some company you've never heard of, you're far more likely to enroll and stay enrolled.
Now, here's my heads up for the developers listening. And I want to be careful and just give you the facts, not the drama. Buried in that same New Mexico coverage is the deadline everyone's racing. The federal tax credit window closes December 31st, 2027.
And that's not a New Mexico thing. That's a national clock. If your project economics assume that credit, you are now on a timeline, not a wish. So the practical takeaway is simple. Know where your projects sit against that date and talk to your tax equity people sooner rather than later. That's not doom, that's a calendar.
A calendar, well said. It's a real constraint. It's the same for everybody, and the developers who plan around it instead of hoping past it are the ones who'll be fine. Okay, bring us home. Delaware.
Delaware's the feel-good closer, and it earns it. Governor Meyer announced 4 community solar projects accepted into something called the Jobs First Permitting Accelerator. Together, more than 16 megawatts and more than $73 million in private investment.
16 megawatts isn't going to move the national number. So why does it land for you?
2 reasons. 1, it's a permitting story, and permitting is where good projects go to die. A state standing up an accelerator specifically to move clean energy through the queue faster, that's a governor treating solar like economic development instead of a nuisance. The developer here is ECA Power, and they've got 4 initiatives moving in Seaford, Townsend, and Clayton.
And the second reason?
The why. Meyer said something I'd put on the wall. He said no one should open their energy bill each month and be forced to decide if they're going to eat dinner, go to the doctor, or power their home. That's the entire reason this industry exists, said out loud by a governor.
So let me total it up. 2 financings, nearly $300 million, one of them investment grade. 2 states, New Mexico and Delaware, actively clearing the path instead of blocking it. And yes, a real deadline in 2027 that gives all of it some urgency.
That's the read. The money believes, the programs are maturing, and the smart players are moving now. Not a bad week for a market everybody keeps trying to bury.
Before we go, 2 quick things. Our sponsor. This show is brought to you by Our Power Co. Their whole line is, you build the solar, we bring the community. They do community solar customer acquisition, which, if you've been listening to us talk about consolidated billing and subscriber funnels for the last 10 minutes, you already know is the hard part.
Filling the capacity is the whole ballgame. You can energize a beautiful project, and it doesn't cash flow until the subscribers are on it. That's the gap Our Power Co. works in. And a quick note for anyone listening who isn't a developer. If you're a homeowner or a renter and you just want to subscribe to Community Solar and lower your own bill, that's a different site. Go to joincommunity.solar. That's the consumer side. Joincommunity.solar.
And one note on how this show gets made, because we think it matters. Community Solar News is produced almost entirely with AI. We deliberately chose tools from companies that pay their own way on energy, covering the grid costs their data centers use, using water-efficient cooling instead of pushing that onto local households. On an energy show, that felt like the least we could do.
Every number we quoted today is sourced and linked in the show notes. The financings, the megawatts, the program details, all of it, straight from the press releases and the filings.
New episodes Tuesday and Thursday. Find us wherever you listen and at communitysolar.news. I'm Ray.
And I'm Della. Keep an eye on that 2027 clock. And remember, that's the community in Community Solar.